Welcome to all the old and new faces, those of you who have just joined us. You know me already, I believe, but if you don't, I'm Eva and I'm a community manager at Juno. And it is with great pleasure that today I can announce our next great session with Nick. I think that for a lot of our community members, Nick already doesn't actually need any introductions, but because he's very active in the freelancer space, he's also a trainer and a coach. He runs his own freelance course. And today he is with us to run the session about generating more leads. But I will actually leave it to Nick to introduce himself much better than I ever could.
That was a lovely introduction, Eva. Thank you so much. That was very, very kind of you to say that. And it probably defeats the point of my About Me slide because you've done such a good job. Thank you everyone for joining today. This is really exciting. It's been a while since I've done one of these. But it's obviously a very, very hot topic just because we've had a lot of demand today and I believe it's sold out, which is a massive, massive privilege. So we're going to jump straight in here today with, of course, what are we talking about today? We're going to be talking about master generating more leads, strategies to boost client acquisition. It's a bit of a mouthful, but essentially, this is just a way to bring in more clients, more leads, and essentially, leads will eventually turn into clients, which is what we all want, right? We all want to be able to do more work and do more of what we love. And the way to do that is to have some form of interest in our services, and that starts all with a lead. So as we had in the beginning stage of this masterclass, feel free to keep jumping into the comments about what you do. I'd love to hear a bit more about your profession and what you're looking to get out of today. Essentially, this is for the creative industry, which you are all in. And we're talking about generating leads. So some of this, all of this you can apply to any field that you're in. I've kind of designed this in a way that although I have a video background, this is applicable for any industry. So a very quick intro about myself. As Eva was kindly mentioned, I'm Nick Kyriakides. I am originally from London and I'm now living in Barcelona, as you can clearly tell from the sunny background. And I've been here for 4 years working 100% remotely. And it's going very well. I'm definitely enjoying the life here. I've been freelancing for 16 years now, and it's been amazing. I've been very, very privileged with the career that I've had to have some very, very cool clients and worked on some meaningful projects. So I do this as a post-production generalist. So essentially that is services that involve video editing, motion graphics, visual effects, grading, and compositing. So you could kind of see that in the show reel there. So I've been really lucky, as I mentioned, to work with clients like Google, Adidas, Spotify, Samsung, YouTube. It's been a really big roster over those years. So I do this through NK Films, my post-production company, and NK Courses is what really was born from the pandemic, which was to kind of combine my coaching background with my freelancing passion, essentially to have a mission to help freelancers like yourselves to just do more work that you love to do and get paid for it. This is something that I'm really passionate about because I didn't have any formal training on freelancing, and it's just a big, big world to navigate. And I hope that I can help you just navigate this amazing world of freelancing. Cool. So with that being said, let's dive into today's agenda. For those of you that love structure, we do have a program. Those of you that love freestyling, we could also mix it up and freestyle along the way. So we're going to be talking about why lead generation is absolutely essential for your business. We're going to go through how to identify your ideal client. We'll go through inbound versus outbound. And if you're unfamiliar with these terms, that's completely fine. We're going to go through what that is. We'll cover the client funnel And what that is just a simple way to essentially just bring in clients through this pipeline so you can understand how it works on an overview level, so you can really strategize how to bring in those clients on a consistent basis. This is really, really key. Then we're going to go through who do you actually contact and what do you say to them. And I can show you a real example of that. And Eva mentioned as well, we're going to have a Q&A. We'll try and take some questions throughout the presentation. I've probably gone overkill on the slides. I think there's about 36 slides. So if not, we'll leave questions to the very end. And for those of you dedicated people, we have a bonus. So we're going to be able to give you something of value here today, as well as the training. Okay, so let's start off by having this question in the forefront of your minds, really, of right now, how you guys get clients. Is there a way that you consciously look to bring in new business? Is there one strategy that you have in mind? Is it through word of mouth? Maybe it's through LinkedIn. Maybe people land on your website. The idea is thinking about, is there something you're doing that's working, or is what you're doing not working, and probably why you may be here today. So this ties into a concept that you may have heard of called the feast and famine cycle. And what this essentially is something that I found myself doing, especially for the first 2 or 3 years of freelancing. And maybe some of you can relate to this, where you may start off your month, especially say January, where usually the market is a bit quieter. You might not find any projects on the horizon at the moment. So then you may kind of be marketing yourself and putting out updates on LinkedIn, sending out emails to clients. You may be looking for anything you can kind of take on or just share your availability with your clients or even with new leads. And then eventually you get lucky. Happy days. You've got a project, things are going well. But the problem is when you're working on that project, you're not actually potentially looking for the next client. So what then happens is once you finish that project, at least this is what I was doing, there's a big gap between then looking for that next gig to line up. So then you go through this cycle potentially of you've done the work, you're then looking for the next gig. Again, you're marketing, waiting for that next job to come in. And essentially this goes through in this loop of trying to line up the next gig. And what I'd love for you all to do is to be looking for the next job or acquiring new clients and new leads whilst you're on a project. And I know you're probably thinking, Nick, how do I do that? I'm busy, I'm working on the actual job, right? So there's ways you can do this, especially before starting your day, spending 5 minutes with a coffee, first thing in the morning, just sending out at least even 2 emails to new clients. If you've done 2 emails a day in Monday to Friday, that's 10 new potential leads you'd have every week. So we're going to try and get into this mindset of marketing is something you constantly do. So how is this for everyone so far? I hope that this isn't too heavy so far, but if I'm going too fast, feel free to let me know as well. But hopefully this is useful. Okay, so this is probably the heaviest slide. It does get easier from here. So if you're okay here and the coffee's kicking in and you're following along, then we're doing really well. So this is something that you probably see in a lot of sales and marketing books and infographics online. This is what's called the client journey. And this is what essentially your clients and your customers, however you want to word it, this is how they come into your business. And it generally looks like this. You first have a brand new, what's called a lead. And we're going to break down this terminology. So a lead is a potential customer. So that's someone who could be a client, is someone inquiring maybe through your website. Maybe they want to see, maybe you're a video editor and they have a 30-second commercial and they want to find out how long and how much will this cost to create this 30-second commercial. So that's the inquiry. That inquiry, the stage they go through is they need to be aware that you exist. So there has to be some form of awareness and some kind of discovery phase. And that's a very, very key step. Without sidetracking too much, a lot of us being creatives, I think we're naturally quite introvert and quite shy to put ourselves online. And I had to really work and get over that concept. And showing up online is a really key way to get known and to get aware. And you just increase your chances of being discovered. So next we have a prospect. You can see them smiling a little bit, getting a bit more of a potential fit here. This is where they may have inquired, you've got back to them, and they're essentially considering your offer. They've discovered your services and they're kind of thinking about, okay, this person has a video editing package, they're in this kind of price range, it's going to take this long, then I'm now kind of warming up to this potential freelancer. Then next, they become qualified. And this, for me, at least, is a two-way street where you are picking your clients as well as them picking you. This is a really key distinction of, instead of thinking of maybe I want to take on every client, you're also weighing out, is this a good fit? Is it worth my time? Is this a project I believe in? Essentially, you're kind of doing this kind of check-in with yourself and with them. Is this something that I need to evaluate and mutually see, is this worth pursuing? So once they're qualified, this is an opportunity. This is where essentially they're one step away from becoming a real client. So this is where most of your clients will have the intent of booking you in. This is, as you know, in our industry, they may pencil you, but they also may be looking at other options and kind of comparing prices maybe, or comparing availability with other freelancers. But they are kind of 80% there, right? And then there we go. They become a client. They're our best friend. And that's when they've fully invested in your services or your product. So how are we doing? Does this sound, I know it's quite a lot to take in, but the idea is once you get a sense of this kind of flow, it's so much easier to gauge where are your clients in this kind of funnel, in this pipeline, and what are the kind of psychological stages they're in. Because as you know, if they're battling with maybe pricing or there's a bit of pushback on, are you a good fit? This will help you navigate, okay, they need a bit more warming up here. Maybe I need to change my pitch a little bit. Maybe I need to kind of reevaluate the services or just kind of change how I'm approaching this a little bit and give them a bit more confidence to invest. Oh, thanks guys. Saying it's making perfect sense. Get some thumbs up and claps as well. Brilliant. So this is something that I like to put into what we're going to get later on into a lot more in depth. And I have a whole 7-part series about this, but to give you an overview, this goes into a CRM. We'll go into what that is later, but it's a customer relationship manager. And essentially, if you can see here, if it's a bit too small, the inquiry, you essentially move this card through, which goes from an inquiry to someone you've maybe contacted. You want to then follow up that lead if they haven't got back to you. Maybe you want to check in on the client in a few months or a few weeks, and you might want to re-engage with them. And eventually the job will be lost or it will be won. So I'm kind of skimming through this now because we'll go through it a bit more in depth. But essentially you're taking them through a really seamless pipeline of tracking who you're contacting. So as you've seen here, got an inquiry from Iron Man. I've contacted Bruce Banner. I need to follow up with Stephen Strange today. I've re-engaged with Peter Parker, and so on. Cool. I can see some comments, people saying this is very clever. So hopefully you can start implementing this. Okay, so that's the client side, the client journey. And this is the client funnel of how you're all going to be bringing clients in. Because I can guarantee you it's going to be through two main methods, which are called inbound and outbound. And as you can probably see from the example here, if you can see that on the screen, if you make that quite large, there are various modes we're going to go through of inbound, where, to give you a quick example, let's say you're trying an inbound strategy. Maybe someone has gone to your video platform, they've gone on YouTube or Vimeo, then they would then contact you through YouTube channel and send you an email to potentially become that first lead, that first inquiry. So I'm going to show you a little bit more in depth what that is. So to first find out that question we were speaking about earlier, about where you currently find leads, how do you guys generally find clients right now? Is it through inbound methods, which are when work comes to you, which is like a pull method? That's when you're kind of attracting, almost like a magnet is the way I like to see this. This is where you are kind of, say for example, you have a profile online and people are discovering you. Whereas outbound is the complete opposite. That's where you are reaching out to clients, you're putting the word out, you have a megaphone or a speaker, and you're putting yourself out there in the world to contact the clients, most of the time directly. But there's ways of doing this indirectly too. So hopefully this is something you guys are conscious of, or you may be doing without even knowing that maybe a lot of your work comes in or inbound or outbound. But it's really key to know what is your strategy, and more importantly, the strategy you're using, do you need to keep continuing on and putting more energy into that? Or do you need to mix things up and maybe look at another way to bring in clients? We've got some questions about, and also comments, 100%. Wow, most people are inbound. This is interesting. 100% inbound, 90% inbound. These slides, or at least the presentation, will be shared after this on the replay. 50-50. Okay, a bit of both. All right, we can discover this more as we go along to see which is the right strategy for you guys. So I also put a little note here that if you are new to freelancing, generally I've found that outbound is the better approach. The reason is, if you're new to the industry and no one really knows about you, you have kind of less status and less kind of online presence. So it's quite unlikely clients are going to come and knock on your door. So that's where you have to kind of knock on the door a lot more and go for outbound methods. Okay, so some examples of inbound, and you can check in with yourselves and see, do you use some of these methods or some of these new to you? So an example could be, you might be referred or introduced by another client, another freelancer. For me, the amazing thing about our industry, and I can speak especially closely on the video side, is it's a conflict of interest. If you think about it, we refer each other for work, and it's amazing because usually you don't tend to get that in most industries because that's potentially your competition. But I know so many freelancers that have referred me. I refer other freelancers, and it's a really great cycle and good nature to have. So you may have got it through a referral. It may be for your online portfolio. Maybe someone's discovered your website. Maybe it's direct on there. It may be through a talent agent or a recruiter, so someone that may be representing you at the time. It may be through social media. It may be someone's seen your Instagram account, they've seen your LinkedIn, your Facebook, TikTok, and they want to hire you through there. So some outbound examples might be you directly reaching out through email. Maybe you've gone to the client that you want to work with and you're going on their contact form directly. You might be DMing them through their social media and posts. You'll be surprised how that works. I've DM'd clients that I wanted to work with through their social media, and they'll pop back a message on there or an email, and that eventually can lead to a job. This is an interesting one, a mailing list. I'm not sure if anyone here has a mailing list and has successfully got work through that, but it's something so powerful where you can essentially show your expertise and have this kind of social proof that you are an expert in something within your field. And the clients that you want to reach out to are going to be the ones that are subscribing, right? Because they're the ones that want to learn about something that you are a pro in. So it could be through networking events. Some people have kindly mentioned in the chat, networking is difficult in person, especially if you work remotely, but there's some ways around that. And online is one of them. Some great websites are like meetup.com, where they have in-person and online events, and Eventbrite, which Eva has kindly put this event on. So Eventbrite, you can actually meet up with people in your local city or town. I've used that a lot. I made some really good friends, made some clients. So you can use methods like that. And job boards and online marketplaces. Of course, I could think of a few marketplaces, but Juno is one that comes to mind, where the reason I put an asterisk here is it's really interesting that I used to think a marketplace would be where you just apply for jobs. That's outbound. But what's interesting is that's brought in so much inbound work, because by having your profile on Juno or other sites, that increases your SEO, and it also allows for clients to find your profile and your work, and then they can contact you. So that's inbound, right? So it's a really clever way to show up everywhere as much as possible. Okay, hopefully I'm not going too fast. I'm conscious there's quite a few slides, but how are we doing, guys? Pop in the comments if this is making sense, if this is resonating with you. Eva, how are we doing?
We are doing well, I believe. I'm just trying to keep up with all the super high engagement in chat and keeping track of all the questions for later.
Amazing, thank you for that. I'll definitely come to as many questions as possible, especially at the very end section. But just to address some quick ones, I know LinkedIn has a real newsletter feature. That's brilliant. I started a newsletter during the pandemic, actually, just about freelancing and freelancing remotely. And I weirdly got not so much video clients, but I got a lot of other jobs through that, and kind of doing things like this and speaking events and writing blogs for other companies. So again, it goes back to that thing. The more you put yourself out there, the more probability there will be to be hired, rather than sitting behind the desk and maybe hiding in our little caves where we're comfortable. Putting yourself out there is always a good idea. There's a comment about not sure how annoying to be with outreach. Certainly kind of gauging it per client, but making sure you're not moving through that funnel too fast is very key, and just kind of going step by step and making sure you're warming up your clients, not physically, just figuratively warming them up from a cold lead to a warm lead, and making sure you can go through the next steps. Cool, it's making sense and pace is good. Thank you for the feedback. Appreciate that a lot. Okay, so now we're going through a 5 or 6 step process, exactly what to do to bring in new clients. I'm all about action and trying to make this as simple as possible for you all. So these are going to be stages you would act on to bring in clients. So the first step is to identify your ideal client. So your ideal client, your dream client, is thinking about what qualities do they have. It's actually a really interesting topic, that thinking about, when you work on a project, what is the reason that makes that a dream project or client? Is it the values they have? Are you aligned on believing the same things or finding the same things important to you all? Is it maybe their artistic style? Maybe it's the industry you're passionate about. Maybe it's a meaningful cause or a charity, or it's about saving the planet or something that you genuinely have a passion for, maybe you like their content. Maybe it's just cool. Maybe you just like the way that they create things. Maybe it's their creative style. Maybe it's the brands that you love, or maybe it's the expertise that you're using within that. So this is a whole masterclass within itself about how to define this. And I've got some other materials on this, but essentially you want to kind of have a think about what is your ideal client. And, you know, in a lot of books, they call this a client persona, a buyer persona, customer profile. This is essentially identifying what are the traits that they have to make this a great fit for you. And that's in every sense of, do they pay well? Is it meaningful? Is it something that you're challenged creatively? So I'd love for you all to keep this in mind as you're searching for your client. So stage 2 is, where do they hang out? And this is where you have to do a bit of digital stalking. This is okay. We're allowed to do this. So the idea is finding, once you know who your ideal client is, let's say Nike, where do Nike generally hang out? So these are some ways you can start. You can look at your existing network and think, hold on, within my existing network, maybe I know someone on LinkedIn or on Facebook or Instagram who works for Nike or has a contact of a contact. So I might tackle social media. So I might go on social media, think, okay, Nike, maybe they're more present on Instagram. So I would kind of start sourcing on there and looking through my followers or who to contact on there or who posts a lot from Nike. If not, I could look at my local businesses. I can start to see in my local shops and high street what kind of clients or leads are potentially there. You can, as I mentioned before, you could go to some networking events and see what potential businesses might be kind of networking and have a potential to work with you. So I think some of you mentioned say for example, a photographer. If you're a photographer and you went to a local event, even if it's something not related to your industry, but you'd like to get into maybe boats, and you went to a local boating event, you can start to pitch your services, or you could just make leads to then eventually pitch. Maybe they want a photo session for their boat, or maybe they're running an event and they need someone to document their things for social media and they want a video edited to put on YouTube, or they want it live streamed. There's so much you can do, especially at events and talking to people in real life. We'll come onto this a lot more later, but we've got LinkedIn company searches, which I'm a really big fan of LinkedIn at the moment. I think it's the best platform for sure for work and for acquiring leads. It's essentially what the platform's for. Stage 3 is we are going to also consider the skill sets that you're offering. So this will be the skills, services, or products that you're offering. In my case, I've kind of narrowed this down to being a generalist. I know the kind of pitches I'm going to have or the conversations I'm going to have are going to be around video editing, maybe VFX, maybe retouching, motion graphics. So it's going with that mindset of who needs those skills. And if you're struggling to niche down or stand out and get responses, because maybe a lot of you are doing a lot of outreach, but maybe you're not getting a lot of responses back, maybe it's an issue of making sure that you're focusing a bit more on either the skill, as in, if you're a generalist like me, you may want to focus on just video editing, just photography, just design, just illustration. And you then also may want to focus and niche down on the market. So maybe I just want to focus on video editing for corporate clients, and more specifically, maybe lawyers. Maybe I want to go and tackle and target law firms. So that's a really key thing I think a lot of us miss out on, that we kind of do too much. And when we say too much in the world and we put it out there that, we do 10 different things, people get very convoluted with what you do. And it's quite hard to define that you are the person to go through for this job. So you want to make sure that you're making a name for yourself and that you are the go-to freelancer for that skill or service. So I'd like you guys to ask yourself, what is one strong skill or service that you offer? This is the strongest. This is the one that you are most confident and capable in, the one that you have the most experience. And I'd love to have a look at the answers below, especially for my generalist friends. If you are kind of a hybrid operator and you're not getting too much luck at the moment, it may be a case of just laser focusing in on what that is. So we've got editing, procrastination. Wow. Surely there's a job where that's useful. Maybe be a deep thinker, maybe a philosopher. Philosophers are procrastinators, right? UX design, great. Cinematic video. Oh, see, cinematic video edits. Put in the word cinematic there, instantly tells me your audience. Donut taster. That's another good one. I would love to get paid to do that. We've got editing sidecar projects, which I believe is from architecture. Remote podcast production. That's interesting. That's a really good one. So yeah, again, you're targeting people that want to run podcasts, but then specifically, if there's a certain genre or expertise, a field of expertise that you have in there, maybe targeting one within that. Another branding, UI, UX, and art direction. Great. Design and branding for motion. Long form content writing. DOP, translation, motion graphics. What if you can't choose a niche? I've actually got a whole masterclass on this of generalizing versus specializing. But essentially, I'll share a link after, and I think Eva's going to share a link at the very end, but there's a worksheet I've got where you can essentially just drill down the sector, the skill set, and what's called a hyper-specific niche. And that's where you can get a bit more targeted on what you want to work on. All right, I'm going to come back to these messages as well, but we'll continue on. Ironically, where it said stop hammer time for questions. So we're going to come back to this as we go through the presentation. Cool. So we're nearly there on the stages. Who should you contact specifically? So we know who our ideal client is. We know the skill or service we're going to offer. We know the sector that they hang in, or at least the platform they hang around. Who should you contact within that? So we touched on this, but essentially the information, and the reason that I've structured it like this is you need to know who you're talking to then get these answers for knowing what is the sector that client essentially operates in. So if it was Nike, that would be potentially the commercial sector. Maybe they're making a documentary. So knowing the exact sector or market will then lead you on to, okay, I need to contact this person in this department because they handle the documentary sections of Nike or Adidas or whoever your dream client is. And just to touch on this briefly, within this approach, we have 3 different types, which you may have heard of. So B2C is business to customer or business to client. So that's where you go in potentially maybe direct to a client. So it might be me, the freelancer, going straight to Adidas. You may be going B2B2C, which is business to business to client. So that's where maybe someone like Juno, that would be an example of a B2B2C. So that might be me to Juno, and Juno's client is Adidas. So that's a different approach. Maybe the low-hanging fruit there is it may be difficult to go straight into the heart of working at Apple. You might be working with a marketplace like Juno, who know the client at Apple. So that's a really good thing to keep in mind, that it might be easier to do that. We also have B2B, business to business. So again, you might be going in person, or you might be sending a direct email to a business or a client that you want to work with, and that's where you're working to the business rather than the client, the B2C. Cool. So this is something where we can all take action today. If there's one thing I'd love you to take away from today, it would really be this simple search hack, which I've been using for a few years now. I'll show you an example actually, rather than describe it. It's essentially how to find clients and leads on LinkedIn. So first of all, to find the leads we want to target, we need to know what keywords are we using for our industry. So I appreciate there's quite a range in the chat today, and for those of you on the replay, thinking about your industry, what kind of words would they associate to the people that hire you? So in video and most of the creative industries actually, you'd be looking to target the account manager, the producer, it might be a recruiter or a talent agent. It might be the head of that department. So in my case, it might be the head of post-production. It might be the head of design for some of you. So the heads sometimes not necessarily do the hiring, but they have a massive influence of who comes on board. So there might be a talent agent, creative director, and also a really big thing is contacting other freelancers and even full-time staff. I've messaged editors at companies that I've wanted to work at, and we've kind of built a relationship up over LinkedIn or over email. And you could also buy a drink for someone in person if you're lucky enough to live near your favorite client. And essentially you're building a relationship with them for them to bring you in. A bit like the freelance mafia, you kind of get associated in to that company through someone who already works there. So definitely think outside the box as well. This is just a guide, but this is something that can definitely work for you. And this is the hack. This is a little secret for you guys. So this is something you can do on LinkedIn, where if you type in a word like producer, and very key, you've got to make sure that you're using quotation marks on the search term, the keyword. Then using or, and it has to be in capital letters there, as you can see in this little video here, you can type in another keyword like account manager. So what that does is that says, I want to look for a producer or account manager at this agency or this post-production house or this studio. So we then can build a list and a database of people to target who work within those roles. So rather than saying a producer, if we say producer or account manager or creative director, we can have like a wide net of search terms to cast a wide net and essentially bring in those leads. There's also a second hack, which is instead of using or, you can use and in capital letters. So you might want to target someone very specific and say, I want to look for a producer and an account manager, someone who has both roles, or maybe a producer and a creative director. And the reason you might want to do that is that narrows down your search to someone very specific. So they might be the head of that department and the producer. Whereas or is, as I mentioned, it's kind of like a wide search, and is like a very narrow, specific, laser focus search. So using those two tips, as you can see in the example there, if you do this on LinkedIn, and I'd really encourage you all to do this, and we'll try and do it at the end if we have time, this will allow you to connect with those leads on LinkedIn. And what we'll move on to next is what do you say to them? What do you actually reach out with once you've found your exact lead to target? Okay, so as I mentioned, this is now what to say. This is a very basic template. I've got hundreds of these inside of my course, but essentially, especially with a LinkedIn kind of 200 character, I think, limit, you at least would want to go with the basics of introducing who you are. You can say, I specialize in, and then have your skill or service that you offer. I help who, as in specifically your target client. And by saying how you do this, ideally, giving a specific example, and then you want to kind of end it with some kind of specific question, just to kind of carry the conversation forward and hopefully get a response back from that client, or from that lead rather. So this may look like this. Hi Matthew, or hi, I'm Matthew. I specialize in 2D character animation, and I help charities by creating engaging and educational explainer videos. So that's the how and the what. I saw in your last post on LinkedIn that you work with freelancers. Would it be okay to pop over my portfolio? That's a very, very casual kind of question. It doesn't require too much effort to have a big response. You're not asking a massive philosophical question about life and making it complicated. You want to kind of make it very friendly, simple, to the point, and just kind of to create that gauge, or visit something that they can respond to then move down that pipeline we went over, to move them closer to like the inquiry stage and discovery stage, where they're starting to ask about your services, your prices, your availability, and then kind of getting them into transforming them into a paid client. Okay, and the very last stage, as I mentioned, is to track your clients in what is called a CRM, a customer or client relationship manager. And the reason that this completely changed the kind of success rate of getting new clients over the 16 years was you can measure this, right? By tracking who you're contacting, the responses, where most of your work comes from. All of this is game changing to see what is working for you and what you need to kind of double down on what you need to stop doing as well. So here's a quick example of my CRM. Of course, these are made up clients, but to give you an idea, through that pipeline we mentioned earlier in the CRM, and by the way, you can use many CRMs. This is ClickUp, but there is HubSpot, there's Strike for Gmail, there's Pipedrive. There's so many tools out there, Salesforce. You could use Notion, whatever platform you're using. It could be a spreadsheet. You can use that. And I have this template you can download on my site as well if you need. But however you're tracking it, the key is to kind of get a few, essentially just kind of pieces of information that will help you to track how successful that client is in terms of converting, and also kind of remembering details, right? Like I use this as a Rolodex of remembering day rates and, who's the person I contacted for that gig. So here's an example here. I've got Harlequin, which was a job or a client I worked with. Again, these are made up. I've got the source. So the source this was from a jobs board. The source is how the client came in through my funnel. I've got some notes here. She only works on comedy projects. I gave her 2 stars for some reason this is just my own preference, but I have like a rating for my clients. Is that weird? Is that OCD? I kind of rate my happiness levels of how much I love that client or that project. If there's any clients watching, you're all 5 stars. We've got here, this was a video editing role. This was their website, email address for me to contact to book in future work, maybe a day rate. At the time, do they allow for remote working? The person I need to contact, the role I was working as, and what kind of client they are. So this was a creative agency. So this is a really, kind of very geeked out CRM on steroids version. You don't need to go to this extent, but how it looks is you essentially have an inquiry maybe. So this would be an inbound lead where I had Aunt May inquire, for example. And then if that's successful, maybe I would reach out to them again and pitch them my offer or get back to them with my availability. And then If they didn't reply for any reason, what I have in this software, ClickUp, is I have automated reminders that trigger if someone doesn't reply to my emails in, I believe it's 24 or 48 hours. I have a reminder pop up to chase them up, and this automatically goes into follow-up, so I know who to chase. And if that converts into a job or not, it goes into lost or disregarded, or it goes into complete, which is, you won the client. So this is very, very detailed, and you can strip this down as much as you want to make it simple as you like. But this is all to lead on to essentially you all knowing where do the majority of your clients and projects come from. Because for me, you may have a rough answer now over on Zoom in the chat there, but when you have a CRM, you have the data to then see, like this example here on the video, I can see most of my work in this case came from social media or direct, I think. I can see that the skill they've hired me for the most is compositing and some visual effects. I can see that my client day rate, who pays the most, see that total income that's brought. You can do all sorts with this. So I really encourage you all to implement a CRM, and you'll be amazed at how you can then track where do you put your time and energy into for your outbound and for your inbound marketing needs. So this is all to really say that if you're a fan of The Office, you'll get this reference from Wayne Gretzky, but it essentially is that fact of if you don't take any shots, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So if you're not taking action and not reaching out, you're only relying on people knocking on your door. So I really encourage you to take action. It's the key distinguisher that will help you gain more leads to convert into clients. And a way you can do this as a motivator from today onwards is try to keep in mind, knowing how your schedule is if you're on a project, maybe reach out to 3 clients in the morning. Maybe before you start your day and you start your project, for me, I find that, putting a coffee on or starting my day and sending 3 emails out from my CRM, I go into the list, contact the first 3 clients there that I haven't spoken to in a while, and send them a personalized email. And that will, I promise you, create more odds of you winning than being discovered otherwise. So take action. All right, we are almost there before we come into a Q&A. So to recap, to just summarize this all, we have the first step is that you need to identify who your ideal client or clients are. You need to figure out or know where they hang out. And this comes from research and just doing a little bit of digging and digital stalking. You need to be able to define your skill and service, because this is what you're going to pitch or what you're going to offer. So it might be you're a video editor or you're a designer, illustrator. Then once you have all that, you know who to contact. Again, using those keywords and that cool LinkedIn search hack. You can then pitch your services with this customized template or your winning kind of message that you want to put out there. And again, ours was a quick example, but you can certainly customize yours a lot better. And lastly, you would track that into a CRM to have this cycle where you're bringing leads into the funnel and working on projects, and you're marketing again to then bring in more clients into that funnel. So congrats, you have made it to the very end. And as a thank you for your time and for tuning in and for your comments, I would love to give you these free ebooks that I wrote last year. Essentially, it's that client funnel guide, and there's a step-by-step guides within that of how to kind of implement the social media strategies, going inbound, outbound, how to go direct. And I've also gone a lot more into detail into some really cool templates you can use on LinkedIn for outreach. So they are free to download. You can get your phone out, you can scan that QR code, Otherwise, I believe Eva will email this link over after this episode or this masterclass, and you can download those completely for free. And if this QR code is on screen long enough, don't worry too much. Oh, someone's kindly put it in the chat. Thank you. We also have one last thing, which is, as some of you may know, I am massively passionate about freelancing, and I kind of wish when I started my freelance journey after university, having some form of training or some way to just navigate this world and to figure out how do I bring in clients, how do I price myself. And I've essentially created a course and a community and loads of tools and resources that are more scripted, probably a bit more concise than this masterclass, that is real essential to take you through the stages of freelancing, to do more work that you love and get paid in the process. So I go through 6 stages. I go through mindset, how to freelance with confidence, how to bring in consistent clients using the various strategies. Today we just covered only a few. I go through how to brief clients, how to pitch your services, how to create these automated systems like the CRM in your business. I go through how to price yourself, how to raise your income, how to go from a freelancer to a studio, and how to present your portfolio and attract your dream projects. And as you've tuned in, I am really happy that Eva's agreed to allow me to offer a discount to everyone watching. You can you can scan the code to access the course. And for the first 5 signups, there's a 15% off. And for all people watching this, there's a 10% off as well. So if you act fast, you can get 15% off for the first 5 that sign up. And again, there's a QR code there to the link to the Freelance Mastery course. And thank you for watching. That is my special effects I can do here through Keynote. But I am really grateful for those of you that have stuck around and tuned in. I hope it was useful. I hope it wasn't too fast. And hopefully it's given you some ideas to bring in more clients and to essentially just kind of think more about your strategy. Because the key thing here is thinking about kind of the mindset of like, how am I bringing in work and are clients discovering me? But then the strategies of how do you actually make this a reality? And so I've just realized the coupon code to use that just danced in there are on screen now. So maybe it's a good idea to screenshot this, or I believe Eva will send this out in an email or on Slack. So that's the masterclass. I'm here for any questions. I know I've overrun. I'm very sorry about that. But this is the Nick ChatGPT moment, Nick GPT, where you ask questions, I'll generate responses in real time and hopefully be able to answer some of your questions. So Eva, I'll hand it over to you if you have any specific questions and if we have time.
Thank you so much. So yes, I've been taking notes of some questions that haven't been answered. So I guess we can start in a moment. Just a heads up, if we don't manage to answer all of them, because there were some, please feel free to use the Slack channel. Nick is there as well. And I hope he will be able to help with the questions that we don't answer today. I think the main question that I saw scrolling down was when you started explaining your CRM system, and there have been a lot of questions about what exactly it is and what is the name of it. And so if you could let us know a little bit more about it, or also have you tried any alternatives? Because I think we were also discussing whether we can use a spreadsheet or a Trello board. So what is your view on that?
I am actually going to put in my CRM template. So I use something called ClickUp. It's essentially a project management software. Some of you may be familiar with Monday.com or Trello or Asana. Essentially, it's project management software, but really it's grown so much where in the last few months they've introduced AI. So you can even ask your own CRM questions and even say, where do most of my clients come from, or who's my highest paying client? and it will generate those responses. And what I've done is I've created my exact template I use for my CRM. And I've just popped the link into Zoom. You can download it for free. It's my template and the link to ClickUp as well. And with that, again, I try not to go too much into it now because I've got a whole separate 7-part series on this CRM, but it's also how I manage all of my projects and active clients. So say, for example, they've become a client, they go through the CRM. I now use it as project management software that when I'm on a job for Google, for example, I essentially take it through the stages of it's being edited, it's in review, I've completed the job, it's going to be invoiced and asking for review. I take it through another pipeline and I carry all of those details of the client with that. So hopefully that answers the question, but it's called ClickUp and that's a CRM that I use, and you can download my exact template for free.
Thank you, Nick. I'm desperately trying to put all the questions in one, and I think the other theme that was recurring was when you send a newsletter and when you send outbound messaging to clients, there was a question about how not to be annoying. And the other one was about the follow-up frame, which I think they are related because it's mostly about the frequency of contact. So is there any advice here around it?
Yeah, no, these are great, really good questions. And again, I actually struggled with this a lot, and I've experimented, especially on a newsletter, because I'm quite new to the kind of marketing game, but with clients and when you're sending emails out for like your availability or saying, this is my services and I'm just wondering if you'd like to collaborate one day or if there's any use for my skills in your company. All of these kind of touch points, essentially, I would go with the kind of permission stages where you wouldn't just marry someone straight away, right? You'd go on a first date, maybe a second date, you start talking a bit more and go on a holiday together. You're essentially going through permission stages where you are saying, is it okay if I email you my availability every 2 weeks? Or, if I sent you an email once a month with, potentially my showreel updates or any news like that, or if you have a newsletter, something I've used in the past is how frequent would you like to hear from me? And they can literally click a button and, at least in my case, they'll go to another funnel which sends them an email every 7 days. Or if they want daily freelance tips, click on LinkedIn, you go on my LinkedIn. So there's essentially a permission game, and just making sure you don't jump all the way to the end and you're just asking, is this okay?
Thank you. Do we have time for one more question?
Yeah, I'm more than happy as long as we're good from everyone else.
I think there is a very good question. Do you have any tips for writing content efficiently? And that's from Nick. So let me actually add in here before you answer. Check our Freelance Hub, because we actually have a whole. We used to have an event called creating your freelance persona in copywriting, and the recording of this event is also there. But let's hear Nick's advice now.
I'd say probably my advice is go watch the Freelancer Hub episode, because they're real writers and copywriters. I don't consider myself a good writer at all, because I've had no formal training. I just kind of write what I think would resonate with other people, because it's based on the conversations I have with other freelancers and friends. In terms of efficiency of writing, I keep a Notions note or database, but sometimes I'm driving, or you sometimes get your best ideas in the shower when you're washing the dishes. I always make sure I have a notes field of bullet points of topics I feel that are relevant. So I'm always keeping out for ideas and hot topics and things that are on my mind for freelancing and tuning into the industry. And writing is really just a case of every day, if you can write kind of 5-10 minutes, that practice goes a long way. I haven't written anything in the past really, and I started just by putting little articles out on LinkedIn about freelancing, and that eventually just kind of scaled to expand. Oh, sorry, I thought Zoom just froze there. But I essentially started to write articles every day, and that writing got a bit better and a bit more, had a bit more clarity, because I got feedback from people to say what they liked more of, what they liked less of, and that kind of improved my style of writing. So the first thing is just start. Take action, start a newsletter, even something very basic.
Thank you so much. I think we will need to finish, unfortunately, as we're way over our time. But Nick, thank you so much once again. I feel we've all really enjoyed it. So by the way, we do it at the end of our every session on Hangout, and I believe it is a little bit less spectacular in Zoom. You can actually clap. So if you go to more, click 3 dots, there are reactions there, you can clap. I believe this session really deserves a lot of applause. So thank you so much. I do realize that we might have missed a few questions, but as I say, feel free to use our Juno Slack for this. I'm leaving in the comments, I am leaving the link to Juno Freelancer Hub. If you want to rewatch this session, it has been recorded. We will publish it as soon as possible, so you can take it from there. I will also send an email later today with all the links, so you will get all the discounts from Nick, as well as the link to the ebook. In case you missed it here, it will also be there. A big request from me, if I can, please feel free to use or fill in the feedback form, which will also be in the follow-up email. It really helps us to understand what you are interested in, and if you love the session with Nick, let us know so that we can run another session with Nick again. And let me just very quickly see if there are any very urgent questions to answer, but I think not. But again, thank you very much, and hope to see you next week on another event.
Thanks so much, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.